Welcome to episode 7 of the Clinch Fight podcast. I'm once again joined by co-hosts Josh Hurst and Ollie Theo. Lads, how you doing?
Not bad.
Yeah, all good, mate. Excited to get our first interview going.
Yeah, today is a very special episode for us as we do our first ever interview. And particularly that this is with the leading MC in Welsh combat sports, Mr. Ricky Wright. How you doing?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. I'm doing pretty good. How are you all?
Yeah, I'm grand, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Okay, Ricky, we're just going to start with how did you get into this crazy profession? Like, where did it all begin?
Well, I've always been into combat sports, and I used to train down with Chris Rees Academy down in Swansea. I also trained with Dogs War down in Penarth, and every gym in Wales practically. I was a much better talker than I am a fighter. So my coach, Chris Rees, was putting on an event at the time in Mma Is. It's a legendary event right now. They call it the Riot of Mma Is because it was the day before Cardiff City were playing Swansea, and they hadn't played each other in about 2 years, and it was in Mma Is, and it was my first ever show I emceed. And just to say, a Cardiff member of the Soul Crew beat a Swansea guy in the main event and started doing the Ayatollah, and it all kicked off, and there was chairs flying into the ring. And bear in mind, this was my first ever time I ever emceed, and the main event was Adam Abel versus Joe Jones, and that never got to happen because the police showed up before the main event could kick off, and it was insane. And my mother was there with her boyfriend, and she didn't want me hanging around with them cage fighter types anymore after that, let me tell you. But I was like, Mum, it was the football fans who kicked off. The fighters in the ring, there's nothing wrong with them. And after that then, that's how it started. And my Thai boxing coach then asked me to do his show a week later, and it was still I only wanted to do the 2 events to help my coaches out, get some free training because I hate paying for training. And then my friend Sledge, who is an MC from Newcastle, he had a show in Southampton that he was double booked for, and he asked me to cover it. And I was like, I'm not really an MC, I'm just helping out my coaches. It's like, it's £200 in it for you. I'm there. So I went to Southampton, and that night then I was like, actually, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was 12 years ago. So I've been doing it that long now.
God, what better way to kick off your career with a Cardiff City Swansea
indeed.
I know. I'm surprised you weren't scared to run off from that. But yeah, fair play. It sounds like you started with that and it's just snowballed since. So fair play to you.
It's just grown, and like the last 5 years where I've been able to quit my job and then start traveling around the world, getting booked in Las Vegas, Dubai, Bangkok, Bahrain, Bulgaria, Czech Republic. It's I love traveling, and it's really good when you don't have to pay for your own flights.
Yeah, bet.
Yeah, on that point, and the pre-talk, Mike said, speaking to you, that you've got a pretty busy year ahead, generally, despite all this going on. Just curious to see what you've got in line for the rest of the year.
Well, next week I'm flying to Denmark for a small hall show. Well, small hall, but it's going to be on like Danish TV, and then fly home, do my 10 days quarantine again.
Oh, yeah. And
then when I'm finally free, I fly to Sweden for the Swedish Thai boxing championships in Gothenburg, which is actually pronounced Göteborg. I've got to get that right. I've been practicing that every day. And
Another riot.
they're very particular in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lawyers. And then I'm back in Denmark again for a world title fight where Dina Thorsland, the current super bantamweight WBO world champion, she's dropping down to bantamweight to contest for her second world title fight against an Argentinian woman who was like 29 wins. So it's a real good fight. Like, do you know, on the boxing we recently had Shannon Courtney versus Ebony Bridges.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
They're the same weight as Dina, but that should have really been a Commonwealth title fight.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah,
it's like Dina, who was already a world champion, she would have walked over both of them. And
really,
and none of them mention Dina. None of the bantamweights in the women's division, so
they don't want the smoke.
Yeah, that's where the politics come in, isn't it? In the profile.
Yeah, they don't want any of that Danish smoked bacon. I don't know. But, there we go.
Obviously, got a busy year lined up. Looking back, what would be like the biggest shows you have done with like boxing and MMA and things like that?
In boxing. When I did the undercard on ITV Box Office for Eubank versus James DeGale, that was pretty huge because like it was on Box Office, full arena. But I didn't do the main event. That was Jimmy Lennon Jr. But I got to work next to him and see how he did things. So it was a good learning experience for me. With MMA, probably my biggest shows either when I did ACA in Moscow. That was insane. Loads of Russians, fighters, amazing. And when I went to Kazakhstan as well to do Titan FC 2018, that was my first time I was in a big arena, sold out, the Almaty Arena, and that was incredible. And like after the main event, everyone just like, have you ever seen like a pitch invasion in football? Well, imagine that cage side, and like they were like, Mr. Selfie, and I was loving it because I was like, my God, I'm huge in Kazakhstan.
You've made it,
and yeah, it was brilliant. And it was like minus 30 in Kazakhstan, so I went to the change room, got changed out of my suit, put my normal clothes on, wrapped up my triple layer jacket, my hat and everything. I looked homeless again. And I'm like, well, I go back out and see the fans now for my ego. And none of them recognize me anymore.
What was it like meeting Jimmy Lennon Jr.? Was he a nice guy? Was he quite down to earth, helpful?
Well, the thing is, like, I always try and think of, if I'm going to meet someone I look up to, I want to give him an impression, like lead in with a good first impression, something they remember me by. And I was like, Jimmy Lennon Jr., I get to work with you. I loved you in Hot Shots 1. Do you remember when Charlie Sheen's Hot Shots 1 and Hot Shots Part 2?
I've never seen that, no.
It's one of my favorite parody films. Absolute, like, comedy gold. So stupid. And he was the MC, and I think they did a parody of Rocky in Hot Shots 1.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I loved you in Hot Shots. I'm starstruck. And he's like, oh yeah, that was insane because I was sat around there in the readers meeting, and you had Charlie Sheen, and you had this guy and this guy, and I'm just the ring announcer. And I'm like, yeah, man, you met Charlie Sheen. He's really cool, Jimmy. I met Michael Buffer as well, which was a little more awkward because it was at the Anthony Joshua, I think maybe Joseph Parker fight, or maybe Takam fight. I can't. No, it's the Joseph Parker fight, and he came into the hotel where the fighters were staying in, and he's a hard man to pin down, Michael Buffer. For years, I could never get him, but I saw him going to the lift with his wife, and I was like, well, you can't tell me to get out of the lift, can he? So he doesn't know that I'm not staying in here, and like, I'm like, hi, Michael. Can I have a picture? And he's like, suppose I have to if I want to live, because he doesn't know I'm not a crazy stalker or anything. So,
what about Bruce Buffer? You ever came across Bruce?
oh yeah, well, me and Bruce are quite good mates. To be honest, like,
I just drop that in there.
Wow, that's so cool.
if you search on YouTube for Bruce Buffer's Apprentice, there's a video of me and Bruce on stage together with Joe Rogan and Dana White.
Wow.
And it's like, basically I met Bruce a few times before then, but this one time in Germany, went out to watch UFC, and Dana White held a Q&A the day before the weigh-ins. Oh no, it was just before the weigh-ins actually, and I went to the Q&A, and UFC and MMA wasn't that big in Germany at the time, so the Q&A was dead. So it was just like a Q&A with me and Dana White. It was just like, I just kept going up and asking him more and more questions, and then I saw Bruce Buffer walk in, and I was like, "Hiya, Dana." He's like, "Oh, you again?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, and I was like, "I'm a ring announcer from the UK, and I've got my first televised event coming up." And I just seen that Bruce walked in, and I was just wondering, like, would I be able to spend the day with Bruce? And he was like, "Well, you'll have to speak to him. You'll have to speak to him." And then Joe Rogan was like, "Can you do the Buffer 360?" And I was like, "I can do the Buffer 360. And he's like, "You say you can do the Buffer 360? Get on down here and show us." So it's me, Bruce, Dana, and Joe Rogan all on stage in Germany, and they tell me to announce a fighter, and they give me the name Michael Bisping, and I go, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael the Count do the 360 Bisping." And then like everybody, like I can still hear Joe Rogan and Dana White's laugh in my head. It's,
Oh, mate.
and after that, Bruce gave me his card, and he said, like, anything you want, I'm always here for you. And he instantly followed me back on Twitter, and we've kept in touch ever since. Anytime I've emailed him, he's replied to me straight away, and he's emailed me out of the blue on occasions, and I'm like, "Oh my god, Bruce."
Oh my god, that's incredible, mate.
Didn't Bruce Buffer bust his knee out doing one of those 360s or something?
That was I think I was there for that. That was in Canada, for where GSP fought Jake Shields, and I went to that. It was the biggest event in the UFC at the time. It was in the Rogers Centre, which is 53,000 seater stadium, and me and my mate managed to get good seats as well. And I think he jumped in the air, and he landed awkwardly on his knee, but he's a trooper, and he just continued to doing it. And that weekend was like a week after my second amateur MMA fight.
Yeah,
and I won that one, and I was in the hotel, and Bruce was taking selfies and signing autographs with people, and I walked past him, and he's like, "Hey Ricky, congratulations on your fight." And I'm like, everyone turns around and is like, "He's a fighter." Like, they were like, "Who the fuck? Who's that guy?" And I'm like, I'm just an amateur guy. Thanks, Bruce. Cool. But yeah, Bruce is good as gold.
What was your
Sorry,
Josh. Go on, Josh.
It's just funny just how casual, like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I know Bruce," and you just whip out a story like that. Fair play. It seems like you really cash on your opportunities when they come. So I can't fault
Do you think it's easier to kind of get involved with stuff like this in MMA compared to boxing?
In pro boxing, yeah, because as an MC in pro boxing, you need a master of ceremonies license. And the first time I applied for my license, I went to the interview, and they said to me, "If we give you a pro license, you can't do any MMA anymore." So I was like, "No, MMA is my bread and butter." Like, so a year later, they changed the rules, and then which is great because then I got my pro license. But pro boxing, the small hole stuff pays a lot less than in MMA. So like if I'm getting paid this much in MMA and then I go to pro boxing and they only want to pay me this much, it's a sacrifice. But gradually that came up, and then now I get paid decent in pro boxing and decent in MMA. But a lot of MMA MCs or unlicensed boxing MCs, when they get their pro license, they can't really stick like, you know, the downgrade in pay, because pro boxing, they've got a lot more red tape with the board, and you've got to have like a ringside anaesthetist, you've got to have an ambulance, like 2 doctors, and boxers generally get paid more than MMA fighters at ground level. So like promoters really don't want to pay for an MC in pro boxing unless they think you're worth it. And that it's taken me a long time to do that, but like a lot of pro boxing MCs as well. I met loads of people who have gotten their pro license and just couldn't handle the scrutiny that you can come under by the boxing board of control as well. I mean, I've been on the wrong end of 2 fines and a warning.
Oh well.
I won't go into it because they might be watching this. But yeah, I mean, I've had £200 fines over the years, and I got called in another time. I didn't get fined that time. So like, and that was something I said on social media as well. So a lot of people, they get a pro license and they don't really like being told what to do by the British Boxing Board, and you've got to pay like 120 quid a year just to be able to have your license. You've got to renew it every year. So MMA is way easier to get into in terms of a ring announcer.
What do you think is giving you more exposure since you've been involved with boxing and MMA?
That's a difficult one. It kind of takes over. It kind of catches up. Like my first live television show was on Eurosport for pro boxing. So I thought, pro boxing's gone up. But then I started like working for IMAF, which do you know IMAF?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation. It's the global governing body for amateur MMA. They started using me in 2015, and then they started taking me, like they took me to Vegas, Prague, Bulgaria, and Bahrain, Bangkok, and so that kind of went up like that. And then I started doing more high-profile stuff in boxing, and then through IMAF, I met people who recommended me to shows across Europe, and so it's kind of like that. But I like both sports. I'm really passionate fan about both boxing and MMA. So, and to me, I think they both go hand in hand. I mean, you got Gary Lockett, who's one of the best coaches for boxing, and he also coaches Lewis Long, Jack Shaw, Ben Ellis in MMA as well. You know, you get people who think you can't like one, and you can only like one. You can't like the two. But I just love both sports. I think they both got something to offer. You know.
Fantastic. Yeah. Ricky, you've already told us some fascinating stories already, but is there any one that particularly stands out to you so far in your career at the moment?
Yeah, you've set the bar high.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. Should I even say some of them? You know, because
ones that you can share, of course.
I just thing is, I did that show I did in Russia a couple of years ago. I upset somebody, and a very important person, and he had he pointed at me and did this in the cage. Basically, I'll tell you the story. So I tell it really well.
If you get fined, we'll cover it for you. Don't worry.
Won't get fined. I'll probably get. Now, what happened was I was doing a show in Moscow, and the TV company said to me, "Ricky, wherever you do not give the microphone to any of the fighters after. We are short on time. We've got to move on to the next fight." Okay, cool. So I'm in the cage. This guy wins the fight, and Mister, can I have a microphone? I'm like, nope. TV said no. And Herb Dean was the referee, and he was like, great job, kid. A lot of people would have just given the mic, but not you. And I'm like, thanks, Herb. And then next thing you know, this guy jumps over the barriers and into the cage. And security just take a step back and let him in. And Herb Dean is going, give him the mic, give him the goddamn mic. So I'm like, this guy, and then so he takes the mic off me, gives it to the fighter. The fighter starts thanking everybody. And I was like, who was that, Herb? It's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And people come up to me cage side and saying, it's okay, Rick. It's okay. It's okay. I'm like, who's this guy? Turns out it's like the head of like one of the Russian Federation security forces.
Oh, God.
And like a real, like, I don't want to name him just in case he kills me. I mean, he might kill all of you too. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But a few fights later, he was back in the cage again, and one of the fighters he sponsors won a title belt. And by this point, I started learning a bit of Russian. So he looked at me, and I was like, Izvini, which means I'm sorry. And he kind of looked at me like, I won't kill you now. And I've never been invited back to Russia, so there we go.
I bet you're glad as well, by the sound of it.
I'm actually booked. I'm booked to go to Russia in September. Actually, but it's a different part of Russian. Like, I've been learning Russian to speak Russian now for nearly 2 years, so I'm really looking forward to ordering a beer in Russian, because that's about as much as I know right now. But that story stands out. I mean, I didn't drop any names there except for Herb Dean, but there we go.
I'm sure you'll be all right, Herb Dean.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
How many languages can you speak then?
I was about to say that. You must have picked up quite a few just on your travels.
Just English, Welsh, and Russian. Like, when I went to Russia, I practiced announcing in Russian, and like Herb Dean's wife, she's Russian, so she was like coaching me ringside, telling me how to say things. So I was like, "Дамы и господа, добрый вечер, да пожаловать в Москву, Россия, это ACA 99." And she was like,
"That's class, mate. That sounded good. Good pronunciation."
Yeah, I mean, it could have been saying anything. That could have been Welsh, but no, yeah. I think it's important. I started learning Russian because when we work away at IMAF, I do a lot of the voluntary stuff leading up to the event, and there's a lot of Russian fighters who don't speak English, and a lot of us don't speak Russian as well. So I'm trying to bridge the gap, with these guys, and I think they respect me for it as well, just because it's such an hard language to learn. The alphabet is different. Crazy.
Right. So obviously COVID has affected fighters a lot in the past year, but how has it affected you and obviously your business within the fight game as well?
Well, the day Boris announced in May that the UK was going into total lockdown was really weird, because I had a whole calendar of events in front of me. I had the Asian Open Championships and the World Championships in Kazakhstan with amateur MMA. I had European Championships in Rome, and a bunch of stuff. And it was a busy year, and it was on course to be my busiest year. And they're just like that. He announced that, and every 5 minutes, a promoter would phone up and be like, "Rick, we've got to cancel the show." And then by this time, I was just picking up. I see my promoter phone, like, "Yeah, cancel. Yeah, no worries, no worries." And my calendar went from like sometimes 3 events a weekend, where sometimes I'll do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or sometimes I'll do like a show abroad where it's like I get it on the Thursday, do the weigh-ins on the Friday, do the fight on the Saturday, and come home on Sunday. It's just like, oh, I've got all this free time now. What am I gonna do? Because like in 2015, I quit my job as a caterer to be a full-time MC. But the last thing I did before I quit my job was get a qualification in catering. So, and randomly, the people I work for now, they just rang me out of the blue and said they had my name on file. Do I want to come and work for them? So I was like, yeah. And to be honest, it is quite a cushy job where I work with children who are quite active, so it keeps me on my toes really. And but like, so I had no work, but then a few jobs came about last year, and I'm really lucky and really blessed that they did, because I've got friends in ring announcing that I'm quite close to, and still to this day, none of them have worked since March last year, and I know for a fact there's some that haven't worked since December 2019 either.
Wow.
So I know how lucky I am, but I know I worked for it, and I went to Sweden in the summer, which was incredible. It's for a show, an MMA show I do called Fight Club Rush. It's live on UFC Fight Pass. Check it out if you've got time.
Definitely, mate. I'll write it down.
But like from July on, I seem to have one show a month. And the thing is, I do a lot of little shows that are my bread and butter, that like I can pay my bills. You know, they don't pay that much, but there's a lot of them, and it means I can live out my dream of being a full-time ring announcer. But the big shows only come every now and again. But all the bread and butter stuff evaporated. None of them have put on a show since. But the big stuff I do still continued. I was lucky last year to work in Sweden, Denmark twice, and Dubai. I did a show in the summer, which was outdoors in a drive-through cinema, which was incredible. You had the cage in the middle. You had a big cinema screen behind it. Everybody pulled up to the cage in their cars, and the weirdest thing was there was no sound on the microphone, so I couldn't hear a single thing I was saying. But they all had the commentary, the live commentary, and my ring announcing tuned into the FM radio.
That's class.
So, well, I was like, no, I go like, I said, make some noise in the mic, and I couldn't hear me. People headside couldn't hear me. The fighters couldn't hear me. But everyone in the cars, like, beeping their horns. And that was incredible. That was contenders in Norwich. And, like, they had, you know, people have to think of ways to make these shows go ahead. Like, the show I did in Sweden was completely behind closed doors. The 2 events I did in Denmark last year had a half capacity arena, which was still amazing because no crowd. And I went out to Dubai as well for MT. That was incredible. Second time working in Dubai. Love it there. But usually that's a full arena, but it was just like a few very rich people ringside. And then I did Boxer as well, the tournament on ITV. and I was in the BT Sports Studios, and that was pretty cool as well. So like, yeah, I mean, as I said, all the bread and butter shows disappeared, but the big shows who pay well and give me a lot of exposure, which are always few and far between anyway, but they had the financial backing to continue putting on shows. So yeah, I was lucky, but I still feel for a lot of my friends, like and referees as well, who haven't been able to work since March last year. It's
yeah, I think it's easy just to talk about the fighters with the whole COVID thing of people missing out on fights, but I think it is almost forgotten how much stuff actually goes into the promotion of a fight. And you know, speaking to people like you is where you really find out how that has affected you. So
the thing is, like for an MC, I'm 35 now. I've been doing it for 12 years. Michael Buffer's 74. I mean, if I stay healthy, I could probably go on till maybe 68. I don't even know if I want to live till 70, to be honest. Fighters have a very short career anyway. And I feel like there's a guy who lives in the street next to mine. You might have heard of him, Reese Edwards. He's 10 and 0 boxer, pro boxer.
Tell him we're after him.
Yeah, we looked at him on.
Yeah, well, I'll go give him a knock now and I'll bring him over.
Happy days.
But like, Reese is he was on fire. He was 10 and 0. He was chasing down the Welsh title, and then he hasn't managed to fight now since February last year. And okay, he's still, I think he's only 20, maybe 21, but that's like a whole year out of his career, you know. And like a lot of the bigger boxers, they only fight once, twice a year anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. But when you're trying to make it, it's really, so I feel a lot for the fighters as well. Like, it's good that promotions in the UK in MMA, like Cage Warriors, have continued to put a few events on a year, but like, that's only for the pro fighters. The amateur scene has been like decimated. Like, I work for MMA Cymru, which is the Welsh team for Welsh amateur mixed martial arts team. I'm like the communications officer, so I'm close to a lot of the young up and coming amateurs, and the fact that none of them have fought since 2019 is really bad for them, you know. And I'm hoping like they'll get a fight this year. And I think like with the whole vaccination rollout and stuff, and I've had mine, 2 of my vaccines. Maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but you know, with Boris announcing that everything's going to be open on the 21st of June, it's like the hope that kills you.
Yeah.
The day he announced that, my girlfriend was getting like, emails from all these like companies like Next and Etsy and New Look saying like, buy your dress for the 21st of June. And like all these companies got behind this promotion campaign, and if things don't go back to normal on the 21st of June, it's going to be uproar, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But as I said, the hope kills you. But despite that, I've still got a busy year coming up. So just hoping we all have a busy year. I mean, you guys got this new podcast.
Yep.
I know how much you probably love to try and get yourself like press passes to ringside, get like a backstage pass so you can interview fighters, and then put the interviews on your podcast. You know, this is probably the next step for you guys.
Yeah.
And a lot of the press, I know, I'm quite good friends with Dewi Powell from Boxing Wales. He hasn't been to a boxing show since last year, and so I just want everyone to be back to normal. I miss so many people, my fighting family.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that. I think we're all itching to get back into it.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see you at some shows, you know, soon. Hopefully, not so distant future.
Yeah, well, don't think I've got any. My next show in, I think, the UK is July in Bristol. Meltdown. There's a lot of young Welsh amateurs on the card, and it's a cracking card. And I'm just hoping that goes off without a hitch. So definitely should try and get onto that. Simon and Paul, the promoters, they put a lot of effort into the young, like, cadet scene and the youths and stuff. So it'll be such a good show. Hopefully it'll go off without a hitch.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, mate, for sure. How do different promotional companies or organizations get in touch with you to, like, MC their shows? Is it just like a phone call, or go for your management team? Or?
Oh, I don't have a management team. I'm just a mouthy loudmouth. I mean, I always say if I weren't an MC, I probably wouldn't do social media. But the fact is, I am an MC and I'm on it all the time. I'm good at reading in between the lines, and if there's one MC and he MCs for 2 shows and he's my friend, and I'm just like, he's got 2 shows that night, and then I'll ask him and I'll be like, hey, do you need someone to cover your other show? And they're like, how do you know I'm double booked? It's like, because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. And so a lot of it, like, because I used to train myself, I used to fight. I would never call myself a fighter. I just used to windmill. That's why I got the nickname Ricky Overhand Wright. Not because I could hit hard, because I close my eyes and hope for the best, and sometimes I'd land. But because before I was an MC, I practically did every job there was in MMA. I worked as part of a cage crew. We'd get to the venue, set the cage up, hang around all day, watch the fights, take the cage down at the end of the show. I've used to write, like, I've had articles published for Fighters Only and things like that. So I've refereed, I've judged, I've time kept. A lot of the times I'll show up at a show and they haven't got a timekeeper or a judge. And this one time I did a show in Cardiff, and it was a charity show in the Vale Hotel where the Welsh rugby team train. And so I was in the ring. I was like, ladies and gentlemen, your referee in charge of the action. I looked at the promoter. I wouldn't name him because, it's embarrassing for him. But if he's listening, And I was like, yo, who's reffing? He looked at me and was like, oh, I knew I forgot something. I jack it off. He's like, you can, ref. I'm like, who else is going to do it, mate? It's okay. I've done this before. I've done it once before. I got this. It was only like 4 fights, and I ended up refereeing. I took my my black shirt, and that was cool. But obviously, I needed to hold the mic so I could announce the winner. So I couldn't really grab the fighter's hands and lift it up. So what I did, I got Craig Cornell, the Wales and Lions legend, to come into the ring just to lift their arms up. That was pretty cool.
Did you announce yourself as the referee before the fights as well?
Yeah, of course. The referee in charge of the action, me.
So you've literally just experienced, like, all different kind of scenarios, like in and out the ring and the cage. From refereeing to kind of actually getting in there yourself to being an MC. It's crazy. Like, you've done it all, haven't you?
I mean, I've done other sports. I've done a bit of darts. I've done ballroom dancing, but they're not my sports. So, but if I were to get into something like snooker, I'd want to learn the sport inside out. I'd be building pool tables in my local pub just to practice,
Yeah.
But I think and another thing you said as well with doing the small stuff, the bread and butter stuff. I did Cage Warriors once in Newport. The very next day, I did a really small kickboxing show in the arse end of Swansea. And Cage Warriors the night before was live around the world on Fight Pass. It was live on Premier Sports. And my girlfriend said to me, "Oh, why'd you want to go Swansea for? A bit of a come down, isn't it?" And I was like, "Beck, I can't wait. I can't wait." It's like, why? Well, last night I had a camera in my face the entire time. I had a producer in my ear. I had people ringside giving me hand gestures. It was an operation, you know. Everything had to be really slick, and there was a lot of pressure. In Swansea, I could just dick about and be myself, you know. And I had a great laugh with the crowd, you know. If I do a small show, I mean, you got more freedom to like banter with the crowd. You can have a laugh with people, and I live for that, you know. And that's one thing Craig Stephen from Scotland has told me. You know, never tell yourself you've made it, because you don't know how long you're going to be there for. You know, you got to keep going. I mean, Craig did the undercard for Michael Buff for Joshua versus Klitschko, and I was like, Craig, you've made it now. You know, you've made it. This could end tomorrow, but I will have the Scottish shows. I will always have the amateur shows up in Scotland who book me every week, no matter what. Like, hey, and it's like, yeah, but you could probably quit them now. You know, you're big time. And he's like, no, I'd never do it. And I learned a lot from Craig. And as it happened, the Zone took over Matchroom, and Zone insisted they used David Diamante. And Craig doesn't get as much work with Matchroom anymore. He gets plenty of other work, and he's always got his bread and butter stuff in Scotland. Like me, I'll always got my small hall stuff, and the little family shows, where the little amateur boxing, where after the 6th fight, all the referees in amateur boxing, they're all volunteers, but they live for a sandwich, and they all go into the room, and they all, you know, I live for that. I live for the scene in general, and I find like you got some people who get a good job, and then they turn all the little stuff down.
Yeah.
Then if you haven't got the little stuff, how would you know, if I wanted to say something, like say you guys suggested like a saying, you know, like Buffer got let's get ready to rumble, and you guys said, Rick, why don't you try saying this? I ain't gonna say it live on TV in front of like thousands of people or millions of people, and then it just bombs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that in front of 150 people in a workman's hall and see if it sounds good with them, you know. But some MCs who've turned on all the little stuff, I just don't understand it. I love seeing amateur fighters coming through, growing up, coming through the scene, and then going on to pros, and like eventually going off to the UFC or to fighting on the big Sky shows, you know.
Yeah.
That like Cage Warriors show you talked about, do you remember which one it was?
It was Jack Marshman fought. I can't remember. His Ali Arish.
Was it the one where the guy tapped, but he claimed he didn't tap afterwards, but you could see that he actually did?
Yeah. That fight.
Yeah. Yes,
that fight,
I was fighting on the amateur part of that card for that.
You were fighting on it?
On the amateur part, yeah.
What's your name?
It's Oliver Theo.
Oh my God, I know you.
And both my brothers would have fought as well.
Yeah. I thought I recognised you. Of course I know you. Like, yeah, all your brothers. Because you're
like
Dave Jim.
And things like that. Yeah.
Dave Jim.
Yeah.
And Ben gives you all daft nicknames.
My nickname was Boney because I look like a skeleton.
Yeah, that's it. And then you had like Kirk, Touchy Feely Healy. You had like
was it the Belly Badger? Was one of them or something?
Yes.
Belly Badger. There was like something like Spicy Uncle Pedro or something like that. It was all like Ben from the old Dave's gym. He would say, "Ricky's here. He's the announcer. Give him a nickname now, or I'm going to give you one for you." And then the fighter would be like, "Oh, I've never really thought about it." The next thing you know, Ben is like, "Right, Ricky, he's going to be called." And then the fighter wouldn't know what they call until I'm announcing them in the cage. So, I mean, sometimes they react well to it. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes it puts them off completely, and they lose their fight because they're thinking about what I just called them in front of their whole family and friends.
I think that's sort of what you mentioned, and then the difference is, I think it makes a big difference when you have a genuine passion for the sport. I think that shows both in your delivery and just sort of in your, not so much your ego, but like, you know, as you said, you've seen some people go from all the way from the amateurs to the big league. So it must be not nice knowing it from that way, as opposed to just thinking, okay, just because I got to somewhere, I'm not going back to my roots. So big props to you for that.
No, I mean, it means a lot. I mean, like, I will always love it. I will always do small stuff if I can, if I'm free that weekend. And it's that show that I did the next day after I did that Cage Warrior show. Like, you had fighters, "Oh my God, you were on Cage Warriors last night and you do my fight tonight." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then, you know, and they get kind of chuffed, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm from Penygrieg, like, it's not a big deal." Like,
I suppose it's like a superhero kind of thing, and you put on your tux, you get all the lights on you, and then you're like $1 million then. So, and then the day after you just back to your sort of your chilled out self. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. I was going to say, just curious, we kind of touched on it earlier, looking into the future, what kind of shows would you like to see yourself entering into?
well, I would really like to, like, some of the events I currently work on, like, I would like them to step it up a level, and then me with them.
That's good.
Like, it's all well and good you know, you get picked up by a big show, or you got like a millionaire backer deciding to put on an MMA show. But like Fight Club Rush, the show I do in Sweden, they had like Khamzat Chimaev on their cards, their earlier cards.
Yeah.
And if you watch early Khamzat fights, the cage is on the floor, and there are like literally kids sitting up with their legs crossed around the cage, you know. And now Fight Club Rush has gone from that. I think I started working on them from Fight Club Rush 5 or 4, and they just grew. After the third show, they decided they wanted to get me as an MC. But like, now they're on UFC Fight Pass, and hopefully when fans come back, they'll go into a bigger arena. Maybe they'll start putting on, instead of putting on 3 shows a year, maybe they'll start putting on, I don't know, 2 shows a month all over Europe. You know, I'd love more than anything to grow as part of something rather than being picked up by something already big, you know.
Yeah.
But like, again, with IMAF, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, they did the first World Championships in Vegas, and then they went to Bahrain, and the purpose of IMAF is to get amateur MMA recognized by the Olympics.
Yeah, that's a sort of seems like a natural progression coming soon, doesn't it? Hopefully.
Well, listen. Before IMAF, I didn't think it was possible. I thought, nah, MMA is too much maybe too violent, maybe people get injured, it would never be an Olympic sport. But IMAF have basically, like, after my first IMAF event in Birmingham in 2015, I was sold, and I was like, yeah, MMA is an Olympic sport. It just needs to be recognized now. And Mark Goddard is the director of regulatory affairs for IMAF, and he's overseeing the rules, and it is now like, I think there's like 60 recognized federations worldwide, and these world championships are legit world championships. You got people from every corner of the world, like French Polynesia, competing and winning medals. Yeah. Like, the country's the same size as the Rhondda, you know, and they're competing on the world stage and winning medals. It's amazing to see. And one day, I believe IMAF will be an MMA, amateur MMA through IMAF will be an Olympic sport, and that would be my ultimate like goal, to be an MC in the Olympics, you know. And I'd on my profile I'd have Ricky Wright, OLY, on all my social media, just like all the real Olympians. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
So I think it kind of, without IMAF being there, showing that it's actually possible to have, you know, all these fights over such a short amount of time, it was impossible for it to ever get to an Olympic stage. But I think they've shown that it is possible to actually do this.
Yeah, and the thing with IMAF as well, the CEO and the president, they are former Olympians themselves. They competed in judo in the 70s and 80s, and they've been involved in the Olympic setup for their entire adult lives. So they're guiding it towards Olympic recognition from the Olympic side of it. And you got like Mark Goddard, and then all the individual federations, and the fantastic team at IMAF as well. There's so many of them from every corner of the world, all driving this like bus, this IMAF bus, in the right directions from it. And I believe it's going to happen. And when you ask me what would be my ideal show or ideal event to work for, it would be to be the first MC to MC mixed martial arts in an Olympic Games. Like, how cool would that be?
You put yourself in position to do it as well.
Yeah, well, I'm the main MC. Done most of the. I've MC'd 10 IMAF events, but I will also go out there and a couple of days early and help set the venue up, help with the athletes, distribute the kit. But I also, like, as I said earlier, work as the communications officer for the Welsh IMAF team. And that's how much I believe in it. I mean, the MMA Cymru stuff is completely voluntary. I don't make any money from it at all. But I believe that not only, like, IMAF mixed martial arts could be an Olympic sport, but I believe Welsh MMA, the Welsh team, we've got enough talent that we could really make an impact at future IMAF tournaments. We've got like Josh Ellis won a gold representing UK. Josh Ellis is from, but that was before UK split into nations. Jack Shaw was a IMAF European champion. Ben Ellis was Ben Robson, was a Asian Open silver medalist. You know, for a country small, we make such an impact at IMAF already. Casey Blake, the female lightweight from Pembroke, she won a silver medal at the World Championships. Scott Pedersen won a bronze, the first athlete to represent Wales at an IMAF to win a medal while representing Wales. Before that, everybody represented the UK. Rowan Crocker as well won the Youth Gold European Championships. I've got to name them all because one of them will come. And Josh Hudson won a bronze at the European Championships in Romania as well. Oh, and Bradley won a youth silver. Bradley Hearn at the Youth World Championships in 2019. Just got to name them all.
Yeah, that's really good. And again, I think that just sort of reigns true to your love of the sport to be able just to wheel them off the top of your head. So I think that is the kind of people that they need with actual drive and a network to potentially facilitate things going forward. So again, big props to you. Just sort of following on from what you were on about then, I was just curious to see if there's anyone we should be watching out for going forward, maybe in sort of the closer period.
In boxing, I've already mentioned him, Rhys Edwards. He's fantastic, and I've hitched my cart to his bandwagon a long time ago.
Good.
When he was 15, and I would go down his gym and spar with him, and obviously he's going to be better than me because he's an elite. He was part with the Welsh team, so I ended up having to take him down and armbar him. But I don't even think I could do that now. I think he's too quick for me now to even get close enough to take him down. So in MMA, there's a lot of guys who represented Wales that are looking to turn pro this year. Like Jack Tucker, he represented Wales at the European Championships in Rome, and he absolutely blitzed through his first two opponents, but then lost a very close decision to the pound for pound number one fighter at the time. So he's looking to turn pro now. He's going to be one to watch. Josh Hudson as well, another. He's quality. He represented Wales at the Worlds and I think, UK at the Europeans.
Like I said, it's really useful you having insight from you on things like this, because I think a big part of why we sort of made the podcast in the first place was to be able to give fighters like that a platform to be able to promote themselves and get it out there, because I do think that Welsh boxing and Welsh MMA probably isn't as well publicised as it should be. So hopefully we'll come together. It might be the case that we pick your brain after and see. And
mate, I've got a list of prospects who are really good. I mean, the you've got a lot of good amateurs now. Ian McKenzie, he's from Cardiff. He's very good. He trains at Mason Jones's gym, and there's so many youngsters. But in 2019, we took a team of youths to the World Championships, so between the ages of 11 and 17, and which was great. But then all their parents came, and their parents were far worse than the kids, to be honest. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this because they'll probably watch this as well, because they really like to get involved. There's a few young kids like Corey Lewis and Ellis Clements and Corin Riddick from Newport, and the amount of talent these youngsters have. And there's another one, Levi Batchelor as well. He just turned 18, 19 maybe, I don't know. He was selected to go to the Europeans before everything crumbled.
Yeah.
They are so much more talented than my generation or the generation before. I mean, whereas they would learn, like Brett Johns learned judo and he had a base martial art, and Jack Shaw, I think he learned MMA from an early age. But the sport has evolved so much now, and all this newfound knowledge every coach has is being like put into these young, impressionable 11-year-old kids, and they're insanely good. Wayne Arangelovic, who's the Welsh MMA Cymru coach, his son, 11, yeah, I think he's 9, and the guy is insane. Like, you know, I'm like he's like probably about 4 foot, and he'd absolutely wreck me, you know. And like, I wouldn't even attempt to spar that kid because I get embarrassed. But yeah, there's so many good kids. The next generation, they're gonna surpass this generation by so much, man, just because of all the information they're taking on. They're not learning. Whereas I'd say my generation, like, I think Lewis Long said it best the other day. He said, like, he made all the mistakes himself. So none of his students are going to make them mistakes. They're not going to train. They're not going to train differently.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's like weight cutting, stuff like that. They did it the hard way, learned on the job. But this new generation, all that information is there for them now, and it's just gonna be. It's just scary how good these kids are, man.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, like we sort of touched on just before I asked you that question. I think it's important for all of us to be well informed about these people and supporting them on their way up, as opposed to, you know, like if you think of Jack Shaw, a lot of people didn't know about him before he got into the UFC. But, you know, if we're given these if you're not in the network anyway, if we want to be giving people these platforms and you know, let them know that we want to be there before the takeover.
Yeah. Well, they need it. I mean, I'm part of MMA Wales podcast, and we used to do quite regular podcasts and put a lot of guys on, and it was the first time a lot of these kids ever got to speak in front of a camera. Like, we had Mason Jones on it quite early on, and then we had him like a year or two later, and his like media game, the way his chat in general just leveled up, and I think he's a very marketable fighter because he
got the scrap, doesn't he?
The best thing I always say when I host a podcast, the less I've got to say and the more like the guest has to say, the better the podcast. Because like, and when we'd have Mason Jones on the MMA World podcast, I'll just be like, because he would just like, he was so good at it. But like, again, like with the young kids, it's something they gotta learn that promoting yourself is just as important, and being able to act up in front of the camera. Like Oban Elliott, he's quite good at it. He's quite mouthy with his opponents. He does a lot of film quotes, and people buy into that. You know, it's entertainment, and I find it a lot more captivating characters in MMA than there are in boxing, because if you're good at boxing, you get sent off to Team GB, the Welsh team.
Like a machine.
You live in this you're in this well-oiled environment, you know, and when all your friends are partying, you kind of like got tunnel vision. But MMA, there isn't that support network yet, so I think it allows people to be bigger characters. And there's some crazy characters in Wales, 100% for sure.
Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time, Ricky.
I could go on. I don't
doubt that. I don't doubt that. I'm still a bit blown away from the start of this interview, and see where we are now. So if we wrap it up there. Right, I'll pause that.
Before we go, Ricky, could you do a ring announcement for our podcast? So introduce a Clinch Fight podcast, please.
Boneddigion a boneddigesau. Rhowch croeso I Clinch.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. That's fantastic.
You send the invoice.
And it's in Welsh. I had to do it in Welsh, you know, because when you told me the name of your podcast was Clinch, I was like, yes. Because I like being able to speak Welsh.
Yeah, I think there's
definitely.
Even though we're not fluent, I think we wanted our USP to be a bit like, we're not too fussed on thinking we need to find huge fighters. We're just fussed on getting the Welsh scene better. So I think it's just it just makes it clearer what we're about as part of our identity, I think. So yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ricky.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Ricky, where can fans follow you on social media?
You got any plugs?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I think it's MC_Ricky_Wright. I think I'm the same on Twitter. Just follow me on that. I've got a YouTube channel now where I'm like blogging my adventures to like, I went to Sweden the other day and I filmed a bunch of stuff.
Just casually go weekend.
Yeah, that's called Tux Will Travel. So check that out, and
will there be also like vlogs and sort of your travels in the future as well with your MCN?
Oh yeah, like I'm going to be filming going to Denmark next week.
Brilliant!
Just something to do while I'm instead of staying in my hotel room on my own, which happens a lot abroad because nobody wants to play with me. Well, there we go.
We'll put all the links to your different platforms in the description, mate. All right?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Anyone you want to get on your podcast, any guests? Like I've got quite good relationships with a lot of fighters from Wales.
Yeah,
that would be perfect. We'll definitely go for that.
Pick you up on that.
So helpful.
I think
just send me.
Reese was one we were particularly after, so I'll send you a list maybe of who we think has got any connection.
You're 50 names now on the list.
Yeah.
Seriously, send me a list, and like as well. There's fighters up North Wales. I mean, Aaron Abbey from North Wales has just signed with Cage Warriors. The guy was he had like cystic fibrosis as a kid, and doctors said he wasn't gonna like live to be an adult, and then he ended up playing for Wrexham and alongside like Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey for like Wales like youth teams and stuff, and then he got into MMA. He went like 10-0 and then had cancer, and then like had cancer again, fought it. Now he's back. Fighting again, and he's just been signed to Cage Warriors, and I think like that's a guy whose story needs to be told, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'd love to get him on.
We'll be straight on that.
Yeah. And you know, it's like I always try and get the North Wales guys to as involved as possible.
That's a big problem I think we have as well.
Yeah, everyone forgets about them, but they're there. They sound funny, but they're there.
Well, on that note, thanks again, Ricky. Your story's been unbelievable, and you've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Ciao, guys.
Cheers.
Ciao, mate.